Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. Got the privilege of having Andy Nicholas on with us this evening, which is great. And then after we've finished with Andy at about 8 o'clock, we've got Wayne Hatswell coming on. He's going to be talking about his career, his role at the club, that type of thing. So look forward to that. It'll be first time on here, and it's actually the first time I've seen him talking as well, so it'd be good. We've got a few bits to go through, so I'm going to bring Rick on straight away.
Hi, Chris. How are we? We all right?
Good evening. I'm good. How are you?
All right. Happy birthday for the other day. So many happy returns.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Another year older.
Well, and very wise as well. Let's just I've got lots of things to go through in terms of SAS travel as well. SAS, of course, will be open for phone bookings only tomorrow night from 7 o'clock. Limited availability for Peterborough in the Carabao Cup, and still taking a reserve list for Colchester, the opening league game of the season on the 9th of August. But people really need to get in touch now if still looking to book, as they have to order coaches this weekend. So if you can get in touch with SAS Travel as soon as possible, open with phone bookings from tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, they'd be very grateful so they can get that sorted. Also, you might well have seen earlier on today some news regarding Axis, which I'll tell you about in just a moment when I found it again. You know me, I always find things and lose them straight away. There's been a statement put out by the club regarding Axis, and I'll read that to you right now. Here it goes. This is from Rob Angus, the Chief Executive Officer, regarding the references to Axis Plumbing New South Wales and an appointment of a liquidator. This is nothing to be concerned about, as this is an old and in effect redundant company within the Axis Group, where there are a large number of companies currently trading. The Axis Services Group is made up of many different companies, and when from time to time the group restructures, there are instances where certain entities that used to form part of the group and are no longer required are either laid dormant or liquidated, closed down, which is what's happened here. Axis Services Group remains strong and is continuing to operate in its normal day-to-day operations. So that is what's happening with Axis. And of course, Axis, Glenmore Fooney, etc. You know the connection. And a couple of loan signings today. Anton Dvorak and Sonny Hart have both gone to Gloucester City in the National League on loan to gain experience in that particular area. So those two have gone on loan in the last few minutes. That's just happened.
There we go. And just also good luck to Ricky Aguilar, who is gone off to Worthing, or gone back to Worthing again to get match time. Couple of other things. We'd just like to pay our respects to Trevor Francis, and I believe you've actually seen him play a couple of times, Vic.
Well, I saw him play when he was 16 at the county ground. Birmingham won 2-1. Chris Porter got the town goal, but Trevor Francis got both goals for Birmingham. And it was in a real spell when he just announced himself on the scene. Got 4 goals in one game when he was a 16-year-old. Fabulous prospect, and of course went on to have a glittering career. So very sad news. But yeah, some of you might remember that game at the county ground many, many years ago. So we wish his family all the best, of course.
We certainly do. Just a reminder that we're playing Plymouth on Saturday and the last of our friendlies at the county ground. And also, we announced last week that we have our fans forum. Now, this is being run by us. It's not being run by the club. And it's on the 16th of August, Wednesday the 16th. And we are charging £5 to attend. That is all going to our charity of the season, which is Derby Rimmer. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, why charge £5? The thing is, a lot, because it's free, we have a lot of people book and then don't come along. And so as we'd like to make some money for Derby Rimmer as well, but it's just to say, because then people don't come along, other people could have taken those spaces. So that's the reason we're doing that. And that will be with Rob Angus, Jamie Russell, Anthony Hall, who is head of stadium operations. I believe that's his title, but I stand corrected if it's not. Mike Flynn, Wayne Hatswell, and also Mandy Coe, who is the head of football for the women's team. So if you want to attend that, you can get our spaces available on our website, www.stfc-osc.com. Okay, and other thing is, just last but not least, Fools Rush In will be on at 9 o'clock tonight, so you'll have to have a quick make a cup of tea between us finishing and them starting. And thank you for all their cooperation, because they have said they could have moved it a bit later, but we've arranged that we will finish at 1:45. Okay, so let's get Mr. Nicholas on, who is waiting patiently in the background.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Okay, as I say, any questions, please leave them in the comments and we'll get through as many as we can. Okay, and I will see you later.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Andy, thank you ever so much for joining us on what looks like a sunlit evening in the part of the world that you're in. Is that right? Is the sun streaming through the windows there?
It is, and it has been all day as well, which has really been the icing on the cake for the cricket, to be honest. I went to Old Trafford a couple of times last week for the Ashes, and I was there on Saturday for a couple of hours, and then, yeah, big disappointment with the rain, and then it's been glorious.
Well, there are people who say we should have an extra day to take account of the weather, but there's no guarantee that extra day won't rain either, is there? So, you never know. But yeah, it's been a great summer of cricket so far, and congratulations to Somerset, of course, who won the T20 recently. So very happy about that. Andy, thank you ever so much for joining us. You might recognise one or two of the shirts behind me. I put them up in your honour because they're similar to the shirts that you wore in your time at the Town. But let's go right back to the beginning, because you come full circle in a way, because you're back working for Liverpool now, but it all started at Liverpool for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I signed, well, actually, I had a year at Everton, to be honest. So when I was played school football, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then my head of football at my school was an Evertonian. So I think he had a part in me first going to Everton. I spent a year there when I was about 9, turning 10. Didn't really get signed on and didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. It was I don't know, felt like I was on trial, playing the games and things. And I left there and didn't really, as a young kid, but I didn't really have a big appetite for it. And then, then Liverpool came in, and I went to Liverpool at age 10. And within 2 weeks, that signed me on, whatever contract you sign a 10-year-old, but instantly signed me on, and it just felt different, felt very welcome. Had a fabulous coach who I still see around the place now. But it was a great place to be. It was a lovely feeling from the start.
So, if I might ask, were you a blue or a red?
Well, in between, if you like. My dad's not from Liverpool, so I didn't have that influence, because that's what people always say, isn't it? My uncle and my dad were, and I only had my family within Liverpool. My dad's side of the family are from Lancashire. He was more into his cricket. My mum is from Liverpool. She was an Evertonian. She still is an Evertonian, and she had a season ticket with my granddad and stuff. So my brother's Everton still now. So I was kind of, as I do now, to be honest. I wouldn't, I want Everton to do well, but I'm certainly a Liverpool supporter now.
When might Everton do well, do you think? Not wanting to intrude on private grief, but you know what I mean. It's not been a great time has it recently?
No, it has been very tough, and they've actually, the complaints over the years has always been the lack of funds, and they've really pumped some money in over the last 3-4 years. The stadium is going to be fantastic. We're watching the stadium getting built right down on the waterfront. That's going to be brilliant for the city. So I'm looking forward to the stadium being built, and personally, I want them to stay up.
Well, obviously, yeah. And we should explain, you are back with Liverpool now, aren't you, in terms of let's talk about your role now, and then we've done the full circle bit, and then we can get on with the Swindon Town time. So what do you actually do at Liverpool now?
Yeah, so I'm the senior coaching manager in the International Academy. So that's my title. So we do some things in the UK, camps. We have a huge residential program. we look after any of the big sponsors' sort of footballing needs, if you like. So Standard Chartered will want to do some clinics in countries around the world and things like that, presentations and things, and me and my sort of team look after that. And we also run about 20 international academies from Australia, Melbourne. We're in Hong Kong, Singapore, 2 in mainland China, Tokyo, Mauritius, Cyprus, Egypt, all the way. We've got 9 partners in America, all the way to California. So it's a global operation. So I sort of, how I got back into this role was when I moved back to the Northwest. I was still full time, and then when I started going part time, I started doing my coaching qualifications, and I got back in touch with people at the academy because, yeah, as you said, that's where it all began, and I still had a real affinity, obviously, to not only the club but the academy. So, and then I started doing bits and pieces with them, sort of part time, and then I became a head coach within the department I work in now. And then about 6 years ago, I got this sort of coaching manager role, if you like. So we're kind of like an extension of the academy. So me and my team have to work closely with the academy and build a curriculum and sessions and a methodology and then have that blueprint, and then partners pay to have the IP and to have the rights to an official academy in their countries, in the market. And then my job is to make sure that the coaches are trained and the kids are getting a really authentic experience. So it's not necessarily about elite. We do have some really top players, but 90% of them are, they're paying for the fantastic coaching, and often they love Liverpool before they join. They certainly do when they leave. So it's a really nice department to work in. For me anyway, I don't have a desire to coach the elite at the academy, which is a lot of coaches do. They really want to get in with the 16s and the 18s, and I don't. I really like the sort of feel-good factor of this department.
Yeah, sounds great. And of course, you've got a worldwide, fan base, haven't you, Liverpool? So, you can attract youngsters from all over the world. Steve sent a message in. Do you ever rub shoulders with David Moss, who, of course, was one of the coaches at the academy? But you don't have a day-to-day mix with the academy coaches. So that David Moss, of course, great Swindon player of the past, but was with the academy up there.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not based at the academy, so obviously those guys are there all the time. Or I'm the first team staffer at the sort of AXA wing of it, whereas I'm based here. I'm sat at my desk now, so there's some a few days of the week, or I'm in the offices, which are by the Liver buildings in the city centre, and to be honest, for a good sort of quarter of the year, I'm travelling. So I do get the opportunity I've been to all of our academies. That's part of my role as well, site visits and things like that. So that's a really, really nice part of it.
Fabulous. And obviously, it is a global thing. I mean, how difficult is it for young players to make it at Liverpool? I mean, in the days of multi-million-pound transfers, I mean, Liverpool have done okay with youngsters coming through the academy, haven't they, in recent times? But what you would think that there'd be immense competition from all around the world to play for Liverpool, which is what you see when your big signings come in, don't you?
Yeah, there is. I felt it in my times, so what we're going back now 20 years. It was around, mid to late 90s. We had Gerard Houllier come in and bring a lot of young French players in who went straight into the first team type of players, and that made it a lot more difficult for someone like myself. And that's obviously even more intense now. The academy now has much bigger squads. I had a really there was a dozen in my age, where there's a lot. There might be 40 or 50 boys at the academy now, but I think they see the bigger picture a lot with sort of the loans as well, and the lads stay at the academy longer, whereas in my day it was at 18 or 19 in my case, there was a decision made, and it was basically, are you ready to go into the first team? whereas there's more of a development, phase between sort of 17 and 21, 22, if you like. Players are given more time to mature, which I think is great. And also they've got a really, like all Premier League clubs, really strong, loans department basically. And there's a couple of people who are specifically, deal with all of the loans, make sure the players are okay, and it's perfect for the development. So it's incredibly difficult. And I think, even the boys that they get a lot of fame now at Liverpool in the youth team. With the TV channel, all the games are streamed, and they get a lot of sort of airtime, if you like. So I think that would make it more difficult as well, because they're put on a pedestal, rightly so, because Liverpool are trying to give all of the players every opportunity to make it to the first team. But when you're up on that pedestal and then you're released, your next move might be the National League or somewhere like that, which is fine, but you've got to be mentally really tough to be able to go and kick again from that sort of level. So I do like it when I see the lads leave and go to good, solid, decent league clubs and carry on for a number of years, because that's similar to what I did, and that's because it's so tough. It can be so tough for them.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because you experienced that, I think, back in 2003 when you got released by Liverpool. And that, how do you deal with that? Because your dream is to play professional football. You're at a club like Liverpool. You want to be winning FA Cups, league championships, blah blah blah. It didn't quite come off. So how did you deal with that?
To be honest, it's a bit like a hamster wheel. So the minute you're told, so Steve Highway really liked me. So Steve Highway was running the academy. Players got released throughout the year before. So actually that squad of 12 was down to 2. So 1 or 2 had already gone up to Melwood. Back then it was Melwood. And then there was only myself and Zach Whitbread left, who played for Norwich and a few other teams. And I played in the Premier League, actually, Millwall and stuff as well. So there was only me and him left. And it was, the season was over. I think it was late May, mid to late May. And so he basically said to the first team, here's the 2 products from this year, if you like. And they ummed and ahed and said, right, we'll take Zach, but we're not going to take Nico. So, but when Steve Highway said that in the room, within the next breath, he was saying, well, where do you want to go? I've got contacts here, there, and there. And before I'd left the room, he was on the phone to people. So I think that's probably a good thing, because if I'd have gone home and wallowed, you maybe then put some defences up and say, I'm not going to do it. So then from there, I drove across to Bradford City first. They wanted to have a look at me, played in a reserve game. Then I drove down to Bristol City. They wanted to have a look at me. I was there for about a week in digs. Then I drove across to Luton and stayed there for about a week. And then I drove back. And that, to be honest, that was horrible. That was really, really tough. I mean, as an adult going into a new dressing room, for example, say a club had signed me, even that makes you feel a bit funny going in. You just don't know where to be. You don't know who people are, But as a 19, was it 19 or was it 18? Maybe 19-year-old, driving all around the country, staying in digs, and then going in not really knowing anyone. And it was really tough. It was really tough. And then I went back to see Steve Highway. And spoke to him basically. I don't know if he'd spoken to the clubs, and there wasn't much. They kind of said, okay, yeah, we like him, but they weren't pulling the trigger, if you like. They weren't offering me anything sort of there and then. And then while I was still in the building at the academy, my phone rang. And this Cockney voice came on and just started jibber jabbering away. Didn't introduce himself at all. I mean, I've said the story before, but it was such a bizarre phone call. And he just said, my name's Andy and I'm a manager of a football team. Didn't say Swindon. So I thought could be anyone type of thing. And then the conversation just went on, and he was basically saying he's 6'3". I was like, yeah, and you're left-footed, yeah, and you've got a long throw, yeah, and you can run up and down. It's just sort of ticking off sort of big, sort of big ticket sort of stats that he quite liked. So obviously, Steve Highway had Andy King had emailed around some of the big clubs and spoken to a few people. Obviously, this is what I subsequently found out. And he'd obviously dropped something into Steve Highway or whatever. So Steve Highway's rang Andy King, straight after I left the room, saying, obviously looking down as well. Andy King's rang me on my mobile. I didn't know it was coming. And then the conversation was just, he said, does your dad, no mention of agents and stuff. Does your dad take you to the game type of thing? Yeah. Oh, well, come to Swindon with your dad. There was maybe another phone call. And then I came down, and I don't think he'd seen me play. He was literally going off my CV recommendation of Steve Highway. Maybe he'd spoken to a few other people, offered me a small contract. He wasn't really taking much of a gamble, if you like. Offered me a small contract, but that sort of backing that he gave me was just what I needed. Don't think I would have impressed if I'd have come down on trial for a week. It's really, really tough. So I think it's quite a smart move by him to just trust in somebody like Steve Highway, who's known me for 12 years. And I think that was the making of it, really. And then I came to Swindon relaxed, much more relaxed and excited. And obviously had the whole season to try and impress and things like that. And, and I did well in pre-season and impressed quite quickly. And then I think it was maybe October or something like that when I first played.
Yeah, it was. I can tell you your debut in a minute. That's Tom Kavanagh says, Steve Highway, my favourite player as a kid. And of course, what a wonderful footballer he was, an extraordinary player. But that's the unseen side of professional football, isn't it? The glamour, the money, the fame, the international call-ups, all that kind of thing. But the travelling around in a car trying to get a gig, if you like, at a football club, the unseen side of it.
Yeah. It was very, very tough. Very tough. No word of any money or anything. You weren't going on a promise of £500 a week or anything. You could have done well, and then they say, well, there's 150 quid, and you need to stay in some digs and things like that. So unbelievable commitment, to be honest. I look back and think, how did I do that? But like I said at the start, you're in it. You're kind of in it, and it just keeps moving. So I was actually quite glad.
Well, it shows a bit of determination as well, doesn't it? The fact that you did do it rather than just sit on your sofa at home and go, do you know what? I'm not going to bother. So, obviously great credit to you. Your debut was on the 15th of October in a 2-1 LDV trophy defeat at Boston, you might well remember. On the opposition side was Adebayo Akinfenwa. I wonder whatever happened to him. He was quite a decent, wasn't he? Luke Garrard, who's been on to great success as Boreham Wood manager, of course, he was on the bench that night as well. It was quite a young side, if I remember rightly. A pretty cold night, so often is at Boston. What do you remember about that game?
Yeah, it was absolutely freezing. Yeah, it's quite hostile, really weird little ground, wasn't it? It's like a cage over the tunnel when you came out. Terrible changing rooms and things like that. I was quite relaxed because it was a second string team, to be honest. It was, I think, the first time I came on, I think was Chesterfield away. That was very much my debut in my mind. But yeah, it was nice to play a proper, competitive, professional game. Absolutely. I remember talking to Matty Hayward when I very first went down. Just stretching and stuff, and I used to chat to him. And I remember saying, I'd like to play half a dozen games, 5-10 games, because then you have played a little bit and you are an actual player, if you like. And I was obviously lucky enough to get a really good run and sign a new deal and kick on for a few years. But that was my initial aim, to be honest. I was always a realist. Yeah, it probably helps with Liverpool. Getting released by Liverpool, I was definitely a realist. Probably hindered me because I wasn't cocky. Probably wasn't confident enough. But it's certainly, on the flip side, it helps because you're not delusional and you're not you're basically not falling off a cliff when you get released. So yeah, but that was my sort of plan at Swindon: play a few games, be around the first team, and yeah. And again, it was a bit like a hamster wheel. You just get into the first team, do well, play a game, and then next minute I'm thinking, oh well, when's the next fixture? And and you just, life as a professional footballer, sort of, a true professional in a league club has sort of just crept up on me.
When did you feel you were established? I mean, it's difficult to say. You say play 10 games or so, but obviously you walk into a dressing room full of experienced footballers, don't you? You mentioned Matt Haywood, obviously experienced pro people like that. But when do you feel you're established?
Well, to be honest, established for me would be was early on. So established meaning I belong. That's what I'd say. I always needed to feel like I belonged. And even during pre-season, we were playing wing backs, for example. At times, and I was playing left wing back, and I had loads of energy, didn't I? And I could get up and I was just running around and tackling and keeping it simple, and not doing anything overlaps and things. And I just remember getting some praise from some of the senior players, which went a really long way. Even Matty obviously had played 100 games by then. Reevesy, AD Vivas was really, really positive, and even in pre-season, I don't know why, but senior players basically saying to you after the game, you're going to play this season, if you keep sort of playing like that. So that's sort of the first feeling of belonging, being a part of it. And then I guess when I was when I was playing week in, week out, I felt confident that I was going to play the next game because I'd done well. The shirt was mine, if you like. We were winning games as well. That obviously, that's how lucky is that for me, that I've gone into a team that's actually winning. And so there's already eyes. So if you're playing in a team that's winning, everyone automatically thinks you're better. You could be putting the same performances in a team that's losing. And you're not as good a player. That's just, it's the subjective, the way it goes. So I was very lucky with the team I walked into. And I mean, when a new sort of 2.5 year contract was getting put on the table, which but obviously back then Swindon were like a one year contract, really. We were still obviously getting paid and the checks and things like that, and they were bouncing. But yeah, I think around the sort of the longer term contract was when I thought, I mean, I didn't think, right, this is it, I've done it. I was just excited. I really was excited. It was a really good environment to be in.
Yeah, you mentioned the side that's winning. Of course, you've experienced the other side of it when Swindon teams weren't winning. But Matt says a good player was Nico. Good to see he's done well for himself. So that's a nice comment for you. That team, playoff contenders, playoffs, that kind of stuff. It was a good team to be around, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a fantastic team. Definitely some of the best players I've ever played with. I remember Kingy saying when I first came down and signed, he was basically trying to make the point that the players, I hadn't thought that the players weren't going to be good, but I think he'd had experience of Premier League, fringe players, reserve players coming down and thinking this is League One. And he was basically saying we've got some really, really good players here, top players, which I didn't doubt for a second. But I can imagine Premier League players coming down and looking down upon it. But yeah, especially the attacking players we had with Sam, Tommy, and Sammy Igo. And like I said, when we played wing backs as well, we just Sammy Igo in the sort of top of the three in the midfield. Absolutely murdering teams in League One because he was just such a clever player with picking up space and being in the pockets and little clever through balls. So I think that team was a combination of a few good signings and also a good system as well, which the opposition couldn't really deal with him.
We had two strikers getting 20 goals apiece each, which, hey, you're going to be successful, aren't you, really? You know, there are certain teams in Swindon's history I've always thought should have gone up.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you don't go up, obviously, there are reasons for that. But that team should have gone up, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so, absolutely. Yeah. We were such a good team, such a good spirit. We're a big squad. You know, we weren't the big players, but it was just, it was a really good team. I think we should have done. Yeah.
So if I might take you back to a rainy night in Brighton, which still hurts to this day. And I'm sure, you know, the picture of Adam Virgo with that last minute header is implanted in most people's brains, quite frankly. You'd lost 1-0 at the county game. What were your memories of that awful night at the Wiz, Dean?
That we were on top, basically. I mean, I started on the bench, so I'd played most of the games, hadn't I? I played the first leg.
Yeah.
Did okay. But again, we lost, so maybe you're looking to change it. And I think Grant Smith played left back. I came on in stoppage time. So I was on the pitch when Virgo, when he scored the goal. But I just felt, I felt we were on top, obviously. And then, you know, it's, for me, don't forget, this is my first season. So I'm half thinking that this is kind of what's going to happen all the time. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, we're a good team. We're right up there. We're in the playoffs. Okay, no bother. We'll do it next year. Fine. We'll get automatic next year, you know, because I'm naively, it was my first season. Whereas obviously, you know, sort of 10 years into it, you think, wow, those moments are actually quite few and far between. And obviously, you know, you guys as fans who've watched it for decades are probably thinking, yeah, that really was one of the, you know, moments of 20 years that we could have done better. But yeah, I just remember it. I remember after the game as well, everyone absolutely drenched and just sort of sat there. Sam had his teeth knocked out. That was right, wasn't it? So it was just, it was terrible. It was terrible, but there was definitely, I mean, there was part of my brain which was saying, fine, because we'll just do it next year. So I did have that. So I wasn't probably as down as some of the other more experienced players who probably appreciated the opportunity missed more than I did.
Yeah, I would of course played Danny Wilson's team in the final had you got through, but hey, that's yesterday. Matt Taylor says, what's your most bonkers Kingy story that you can share with us at this time of the evening? Because those stories are legendary, aren't they? I mean, this was a crazy old time with Swindon, as you alluded to already. Financially, of course, that this club is never kind of, you know, it's always just around the corner, as it were. But he was a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was unbelievable character. I know, you know, it was a bit Marmite with some of the players, but for me, he was all about how he made me feel. I sort of touched on it before. I was a young player, obviously doing well for him, but he'd always be looking after me. Not just me, any of the younger players especially. Come and have a word with you. Make sure you had tickets for your dad or anyone who was family who was coming up. You know, have a quick chat with my family and stuff after the game when he could see me speaking to them, for example, by the coach. If we played somebody up north, hold them away or something like that, he'd pull me quietly aside and say, go home, stay, you know, have Monday off, come back Tuesday. Little things like that. You know, he was very, very brash, and I mean, you know, I'm a Scouse who's grown up in Liverpool, so I'm not, you know, I know some sort of characters, big characters, if you like. Maybe some people weren't used to it, that type of side, but obviously we had our moments where, you know, he stopped picking me and he tried to fire me out on, you know, fire me off on loan type of thing and stuff like that, but they're not the overriding sort of feelings that I have for him. He was crackers. He was massively old school, obviously smoking a cigar on the coach or in the hotels and playing cards. And, you know, if you were in the final of cards, he'd be dealing. And I remember me and Sean O'Hanlon looking at it was like 11:30 on the on the Friday, approaching midnight the day before the game. The cards have been going on since 9:00, for example, and both of us are thinking, well, should we just split it? And he's like, no, you can't split it. So yeah, there's lots of stories. Probably, people can remember more, better stories than I can. But yeah, I remember him, obviously, his golf clubs came out of the training ground all the time, whacking balls over the trees and stuff. He was a massive character. I really liked him. He gave me my chance, obviously. It was sad when he left and he got sacked, and obviously terribly sad when I heard the news of him passing as well. And I was actually away on holiday, otherwise I would have definitely gone with some of the other lads to his funeral. But I've got very fond memories of him. I know some people have in different ones, but his sort of the emotion in him that you see as fans and things, well, that came out in the changing rooms as well. That emotion, that sort of you sort of talk about the chimp brain. He was all chimp brain, which gets you really far in life. It's, and that's why he was such a good player and things like that. But it was boom, boom, boom. And so obviously as fans, you're looking at changes and tactical changes and substitutions and that sort of massive energy, and where he looks like he's kind of all over the place. He probably wasn't as all over the place as you think he was, but that's that's the sort of the way he acted. But I think he had a lot more tactical nous than people give him credit for. Like, for example, that first year, the team he set up with, and the wing backs and the personnel that he put in certain positions, and obviously signing of players. I think he was brilliant at signing players. Picked really, really good players who fitted in with a really nice balance of personality as well, which obviously he liked. He liked players with big personalities.
Well, it was a certainly golden era. Apart from that night at Brighton, I think everybody would remember that era as a great, great team. And as I said, one of them that should have gone up. Is no question about that. Many might remember that match of the day moment when he was being interviewed after scoring that goal against Liverpool in the Merseyside derby, when the policeman told him to leave the pitch just as he was being interviewed. It was one of the great TV moments, on Match of the Day. So, yeah, certainly a character. You mentioned loans and also injuries. That's another part of it, isn't it? As a footballer, you get injuries. How did you deal with those?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience of injuries. When I was at Liverpool, I had some stress fractures, which was kind of going around at the time, if you like. I think it was down to do with the blades, when people were wearing the blade boots rather than studs around 2000. So I had sort of metatarsal stress fractures and things like that. So I had a boot on for a while. But yeah, I had a couple of decent injuries at Swindon. One, sort of a cracked heel, which was slightly infected and stuff around pre-season, which kept me out for a while. I had a knee operation at the end of my first year. So yeah, I did. I had my fair share. I didn't have muscle injuries. I think that's what I mean. I never struggled with muscle injuries really. So when I got an injury, it was usually a broken bone or something like that. But yeah, I was okay. I was all right injured. Just because I was quite level-headed, I sort of wouldn't fret if someone took my position and things like that. My time at Swindon, there was, I'd say I was rarely out and out first choice. There was always someone else, or the next manager would always sign someone else. So I wouldn't necessarily be understudy, but I was never like out and out. Definitely, that's my left back. So I was actually quite proud of myself to sort of push my way into all the managers' teams, apart from at the end with Malpass, where I didn't have a sniff really. That sort of just finally came up against the brick wall there. Whereas all of the other managers, I'd sort of proven myself, and there's 5-6 managers I think I had, and they'd all played me quite significant periods. So you've got to be doing something right. But yeah, So yeah, when I was injured, I wouldn't be fretting about missing out on opportunities and things like that. You know, I'd try and be good, try and be still part of the squad and encouraging people and, you know, helping the defenders, or certainly speaking with the younger lads as well. Once I got, you know, a few players younger than me in the team, I quite enjoyed speaking to them and, you know, and sort of helping them in the way that I got help off, you know, Reevesy and AD and people like that, because I found that really important. So I did try to help the youth team lads coming through, and there was quite a lot around that stage as well. You know, somebody like Lucas, who I still speak to, obviously got on to have a fantastic career, hasn't he? But yeah, I remember him sort of breaking through, and Ben Tozer and Callum Kennedy was my apprentice, you know, big boy apprentice, if you like. So obviously spent a bit of time with him as well. You know, and he didn't really play while I was there, and then, you know, I was off playing for Rotherham or whatever, and then next thing I know, he's in and he's first choice and he's bigger and musclier, and, you know, I thought, wow, he's really put the work in and sort of, you know, had a fantastic career as well. So
yeah, got the first goal under Paolo Di Canio as well from the penalty spot, which was an interesting one. Is it a little bit of trivia? I mean, yeah, you mentioned Lukas Jukovic. My goodness me, what an impression he made when he came in. I mean, that was a player, wasn't it? You looked at that and you thought, this is a kiddie. He's got something here.
Yeah, and he's such a nice lad. He's a quiet lad, unassuming. And then, you know, when we were so obviously we first encounter him in training, and then he just started pinning all of the defenders. You know, I remember Sean O'Hanlon, who at the time was absolutely flying. You know, first name on the team sheet, was playing fantastically. And it was him who was first saying to me, he's really, really good, you know. And because it was at close quarters, he was, you know, having to deal with his little clever movements, but also his maturity and his, you know, in pinning and things like that. And just when Sean wanted to do something, he was there in the way. So that was really, yeah, he's had a fantastic career, yeah. And, you know, had a few nice little couple of £1 million moves around the Championship, and obviously Burnley signed him and took him into the Premier League as well. So yeah, but couldn't happen to a nicer guy as well.
Yeah, he blossomed a bit under Paul Sturrock, I seem to remember, got 1 or 2 really crucial goals. I mean, you mentioned how many managers. We were talking before we started about Andy King, Ife and Nora, Dennis Wise, A.D. Williams, Paul Sturrock, David Byrne, Maurice Malpass. I mean, my goodness me, we had Gerald Eiffel on last week, and he was saying about how the trouble is with they keep changing managers. You suddenly have to start impressing another man. I mean, Ife and Nora was of course at the club when he took on the job. But you suddenly have to impress another manager when they come in. How did you deal with managerial changes?
Just on a personal level, obviously, well, I just, you know, like to try to get on with everyone. So that's probably how I lasted 6 managers as well, because I think the managers would look at me and think, you know, he's good, nice lad, good player, professional, he's no trouble. You know, he's not knocking on my door and moaning about this, that, and the other. And that's how I would be, you know, with anyone, to be honest. Yeah, and it is very difficult with new managers coming in, because same with any club at any level. When you go in, you can't just keep the status quo. You know, it's rare. Sometimes a manager will leave, like what happened to us a couple of times when I was there. You know, Wisey and Sturrock, they'll leave to go to what they seem as a bigger job. That's quite rare. I get maybe then you might not rock the boat too much, but 90% of the time is a sacked manager. So, you know, the whole point of the manager is that they've got to come in and start saying, that wasn't working, we're going to do it this way now. And that obviously equals change in style, change in personnel. You know, they want to bring in their own people. Sturrock was definitely a big one for that, bringing in his players and his people. And yeah, managed to ride that one out, if you like, as well, and play quite a big part in the promotion. But yeah, when we were chopping and changing, obviously Ife wasn't a big change. We all knew Ife and loved him. He's a fantastic guy. we had a really young team, didn't we? We had a really, really inexperienced young team. Within a couple of years of me joining, I'm like one of the senior players.
Yeah, you're the longest serving player at one stage in the team.
Yeah, after 2 years.
Yeah.
Basically. So just think about that wonderful team that we've talked about from 2003-4. The whole 20 of them gone. Yeah. That's mad. The whole of them gone. You know, and me being the longest serving, 2.5 years in or something like that. And then we had much younger players and they were good players. But yeah, we got into a dogfight and it was difficult. And we kind of, we got ourselves out, didn't we, at one point, a few months before the end, or seemingly we were going out. And then if he was trying to be nice and do the right thing, and he was actually signing the young players up on contracts and things like that, sort of we'd got out of the, we'd seemingly look like we were getting out of the mess. You're talking about 21, 22, 23-year-old players, Jack Smith and Charlie and Jarrell and me, and there was a few of us, and it was right. We don't want to lose you in the summer. Here's new contracts, and trying to sort of build a bit of a positivity, and and then we slipped back in, and then Dennis Wise was quite a big shock that first, because that was just the first real unknown for me as a player. Obviously I had the initial unknown, but I mean as a professional, he was playing, and I thought, oh God. I just thought, here we go. Just as you might think of him, just off, the persona, off whatever. I thought this is going to be trouble, and it was absolutely brilliant from the very start with Gus as well. I saw Gus recently at Anfield, and I thought, oh, I'll go and say hello. I'll introduce myself though, so he knows who I am. And he was like, he was all arms. Oh, before I'd even got there, I had a cap on and everything. Oh, Nick, how are you? And I thought, well, yeah, that kind of sums up Gus. He was a really, really nice guy as well.
Because you'd been offered a contract, I think, by Ifianora, hadn't you? And then didn't Dennis Wise honour that? Because he didn't want to, he thought it was unfair if you'd been offered a contract.
I know. I mean, just think about that. Like, yeah, if he had offered me a contract 3 months before the end of the season, let's say, my agent had got involved, which had never really happened before. But now I'd played 100 league games. So my agent's getting involved, probably asking for a bit more. So it just takes longer. It wasn't, here's the contract offer, sign. And then, it gets to basically the end of the season. I don't know why, but I was pretty blasé about it, even though I hadn't signed the contract. And then, exactly, that's a bit of a sliding doors moment. Dennis Wise could have come in and said, no more contracts being signed. I'll bring my own players in, type of thing. But luckily he said he'd honour it. Probably helps that I wasn't one of the top earners, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like a major chunk of his budget. I think he said to Jenks, somebody like Jenks, who was obviously about 32, 33, there was one on the table there, and they didn't do that, with a few of the older players. But it was a bit of a, I remember my mum messaging me, probably when if he got sacked, saying, get down to the club now and sign your contract. He did say something like that again. Yeah, that's a bit of fate that he signed that. But they came in so determined, so professional. Pre-season was an absolute joke, like by far the hardest I'd ever done. Liverpool, everything included. It was an Italian, Vialli-esque from their time working under him, and it was absolutely wild. We were so fit though, we started pre-season early, so everyone just you start pre-season first, second, 3rd of July, so people are off on holiday in June, and then we all got a letter saying your assessment day is 24th of June, let's say, and there's people having to come back early from holidays and things. So we started in June and had sort of a full 6 weeks pre-season, and we were just so super fit.
Well, I was going to say that start of that next season showed it, didn't it? It was a fantastic start to the season. And then, of course, he leaves in October to go off to Leeds. Then Paul Sturrock comes in. And I asked this question to everybody: Stogies, how did you get on with them? Paul Sturrock's favourite food.
Yeah, no, fine. Loads and loads of complaints. Fine for me. I don't mind that type of thing. But it was basically corned beef mashed up, wasn't it? Onions, maybe a bit of potato, and it was his favourite. But it was the heaviest thing you could possibly eat, and so stodgy. It would not get nowadays nowhere near a player's body. Yeah, I used to like. We used to like to do soup and sandwiches as well. If it was a lighter meal, we just have soup and sandwiches, which fine. I was never one to be complaining about things like that, but yeah, they were quite. It was quite funny when he sort of insisted and made everyone eat the same.
Fabulous. I mean, you couldn't get more chalk and cheese, really, could you, between Dennis Wise and Paul Sturrock? I mean, it seems to me that you've got the new style, and then you've got the old school. Is that fair to say?
Yes, in many ways, but I guess the similarity is clear focus on what they want. So slightly going about it in different ways, but there's definite similarities. We would spend ages and ages and ages with Dennis Wise practicing throw-ins when we haven't got the ball, to get the ball back within 3 seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds. We'd have the ball back. With Paul Sturrock, it was all the practices was about getting the ball wide and then crosses in. And if you could never turn a cross down, or it was getting it into the striker. It was basically everything into the strikers. As a fullback, I'd sort of sit, be in the left back position, and I'd be practicing receiving a ball, opening my body up, and lumping it right down over their right back's head into the channel. Practice off his, because that's what he wanted. So, whereas I've had managers where there was no focus. Training was nice, but there was no focus to. You didn't really know you didn't know what they wanted you to do. To be honest. Whereas with Paul Sturrock, you were in no doubt. You were in no doubt of what he wanted, and same with Wisey. The difference was sort of maybe more modern. Was Paul Sturrock was, this is how it, was very more commanding. Whereas Dennis Wise would work, would get super fit, and then he'd constantly be just telling you, we are the fittest, we are the best, we're going to wipe, the real positivity around it, and the sort of sports psychology. The day of a game, he was only there a couple of months, but the day of a game, you wouldn't see him. He wouldn't come into the dressing room. We'd all be sort of buzzing around. Gus might come in, chit chat, and then we'd come in, and it'd just be like, look, we've got this. You're the most prepared team in the league. You're the fittest team. We've got the best play. We've practiced. We know what we're going to do. Let's do it. And I know he wasn't there long, but we did it. So there was just this wave of positivity, which we had good players, but that was clever. I think that's sort of much more of a modern lens on coaching, the sort of positive side, which
I mean,
it doesn't work when you're losing. I do appreciate that, but
I mean, you talk about impact. Petr Brezovan had quite an impact, didn't he? I mean, if you're going to make an impact, you might as well do it in your debut at Hartlepool and save a couple of penalties. And he was sad that he got the injury that he did, because boy, what a start he had to his swimming career, didn't he?
He was brilliant. Yeah, we were doing pre-season, and the goalies were training by themselves, and we had a number of trialists, if you like, come in. And Dennis Wise would come over to us, say we're in the ice baths, just the whole sort of squad, and he was basically saying, "Wait till you see what we've got." He knew, he was sort of teasing us. He was going, "Wait till you see the goalie that we've got down there." Yeah, and he was a beast. He was the perfect model of you rarely see a goalkeeper of that sort of stature, young, can kick it. So, to be honest, when I when you see a goalie of that build in League 1, 2, there's always something wrong. You know what I mean? If there wasn't something wrong, they'd be at a higher level because of just how he looked right. And, there wasn't anything wrong. He was fantastic. Good attitude, great fun.
I always remember at Chester on a Friday night, and I think it was a 1-0 win, but he produced one of the greatest saves I've ever seen. It was you're too young to remember the thing called twizzle, but it was a bit like that, where his arm seemed to extend out about 6 foot and turn the ball around the post. It was an incredible save, and you just thought, this is going to be one of the best goalkeepers we ever had. Sadly, it didn't work out, but boy, oh boy, he was some keeper, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic, head and shoulders above any goalie I'd ever that I played with, and I played with some good ones as well.
We're coming to the end of our time, sadly. It's been great talking to you. You're welcome on any time because you've got a wealth of stories. But Maurice Malpass, obviously his time at Swindon didn't end well. How did your departure happen?
Well, it was quite brief, actually. So, yeah, he came in. Sturrock left. I think, Paul Sturrock kind of, nominated him or whatever you want to say, sort of put him forward as a mate. So I thought nothing of that because I've been playing for Paul Sturrock, and done well from at times, and he'd said that to me. He'd said things like, "I'm going to bring another left back in, but you've done good work for me. Here's another contract," type of thing. And yeah, he came in, and I think he watched his first game in the stand was Walsall away. I scored with my right foot, which I thought would have been enough. With only ever goal with my right foot. I scored, played well. Sofiane ahead of me, had a good little connection, really dangerous going forward. And just never played again. Never spoken to. Zero atmosphere. It was quite surprising because I know his background was sort of Scotland under 21s and things like that. So a real technical sort of FA background. Nothing shape-wise. Training was, the little circles, the rondos that you call them rondos nowadays. Circles, 5-a-side. That was it. There was really no direction. Yeah, I mean, that's not me being bitter because I wasn't playing. It was kind of the same. And I remember the comments being made, and Hasney sort of defending it and saying, "Well, look, hang on, training's fun, it's good, we're not getting battered." But there was definite voices of, maybe Joel might have been quite a strong voice of, "Well, what are we doing now? What's happening?" So he never ever spoke to me. And then sort of, D-Day, when you go into his office at the end of the year to be like yes or no, without any sort of build-up. He didn't want to be there. He obviously wasn't a very sociable person because he never spoke to anyone. I wasn't going to bite his head off. Like I said, I've been in and out of the team. Never spoke to me. And then he just, he said, "We're not going to offer you a new deal." And I almost went and just to get up because I hadn't played. Of course, I wasn't getting a new deal. But then I thought, "Oh no, I'll ask him." So I said, "What is it that what are you looking for? What?" And he sort of pondered, and he just said, just a better player. That was it. He said, just a better player. And I laughed, I laughed. And I said, I went, oh, okay. And I went, no, yeah, I went, all right, yeah, fair enough. And that I mean, he couldn't even play the game. Managers play the game. They say, "Listen, Nick, I know you've been here for years. You've done so well for this club. You've been fantastic. All it is I slightly see us going in a different way, and I'm going to bring someone in, and you're not going to get any, so just turn it around as a manager and say, look, Nico, for your benefit, you're not going to really play. So go on." And you end up shaking hands. He didn't even play the game. It was very, very strange. Very, very strange. And then once I'd left, obviously I was signed for Rotherham on a couple of years. then I see sort of, Swindon not really having a left back. And then him getting sacked. And then part of me is like, so annoyed because I just really didn't want to leave because, it was a massive part of me. I just didn't want to leave the club. And I could have easily not left the club, and sort of helped out, and being a sort of in and around the team for another couple of years. So that hurt. That actually hurt more than the actual conversation, if you like. The moment when I was thinking, he's now gone. Danny Wilson coming in next, was he?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, look at, proper manager. The fortunes of the club seem to turn around. So, yeah. But you can't complain at sort of 5 years. Can't complain at 5 years at the club. So.
Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you, Andy. Thank you ever so much for joining us. And as I said, you're welcome anytime. We did have one question earlier about the modern art in the background. Not a football question, but Andy has quite a collection of 20th century art behind him. Is it his choice? Are you a modern art person?
Yeah, these are all my choices from. I've sort of seen on my travels. I always go to the art galleries and things. So I've seen them in. I've seen the originals, and then I like to buy a small print and frame it. So I've got art all over all of these walls. Yeah,
fabulous. So I can see American Gothic there. There's a.
I saw that in Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
So I've been like Baltimore, Chicago. Yeah, I've been to a few of them in Philadelphia.
A couple of Van Goghs. Yeah, very nice. Very good.
Picasso pigs. Yeah, which all
very good.
And what have you got, Phil?
I got a load of Swindon
on yours.
A load of Swindon.
This one's called Going to the Match, and I think the PFA own the original. They bought it for their offices, and they got a lot of stick because they paid 1.2 million, and it's now worth about 10.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, very famous picture indeed by the Northern artist, of course. So that'll be yes. Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you ever so much. We'll let you get on, and good luck with your career at the moment with Liverpool. And it's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you ever so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
And again, I think we need a part 2 on as well. So
yeah,
we'll have you on again, Andy, for part 2.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time. Much appreciated. Okay, thanks, Andy. Right, so now we move on to part 2 of our evening now. So let's get Mr. Hatswell on.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, how are you?
How are you?
All right.
Yeah, good evening to you both. You okay?
We're all good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for giving us the time.
That's right, you're welcome.
Right, I'm going to leave you with Vic, and I will speak to you.
It's great to see you. Thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. I know it's an incredibly busy time of the year, I would imagine. I won't ask you about any secret deals you've got going on because I know there's lots of deals going on. So we'll move on swiftly. But I see a couple of young players have gone out on loan tonight. Anton Dvorak and Sonny Hart. That's to give them experience at a pretty decent level, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They're Anton's 18, Sonny's 16. So, doing world of good going into men's football, and hopefully that going there and should bode them well for the future, I think.
Now let's talk about you then. You are a Swindonian, which is good to know. Were you always a Town fan, or were your loyalties elsewhere?
I was a Town fan probably most of my younger life, if that makes sense. And then my dad always used to take me to the county ground, obviously in the Town End, and I got some good memories from that. As I grew a little bit older, I was a Liverpool fan, so obviously just reached a little bit further out. Probably just on the bandwagon that they were winning everything at that time when I was a bit younger, and that was obviously then I played every Saturday, so it was always a little bit more difficult. But obviously I always go back to Swindon because my family are there, and so I've always kept an eye on results,
I've got another question about modern art behind you. This seems to be a theme, doesn't it? With Andy Nicholas.
Listen, that's not mine. That's my better half. That's down to her.
Fair enough.
Talking of art, I do draw, so I've got some stuff, but it's not in this room. But some of it's, or most of it's in the loft. But that's COVID for you.
Well, we are finding out about you tonight. So what do you sketch? I mean, are you a watercolor person, or were you just a sketcher?
No, I've been acrylics really.
Right.
I did. Yeah, COVID was quite good for me. I had a real good fitness regime, and then just sort of got my teeth into drawing, which is, you know, probably something that I've always loved to do, but just never really had the opportunity to do it. One day I might show you some of my stuff.
That'd be really good. Absolutely. I mean, somebody who's dabbled with watercolors myself, I know how relaxing it is and how it absolutely. What era of town team were you watching in the town end then?
It would have been Chris Kamara's. I can remember I think he scored in one of the playoff games at home in extra time. I think it might have been 4-2. I can't remember who it was against. But that one sticks in my mind. He scored from the edge of the box, I think. And then there was a little bit of a surge, in the town end, and obviously I was only quite young then. So the other one was, we played Leeds. I think, I couldn't remember if it was in a cup game, but I remember then there was a little bit of trouble outside, and my dad sort of clinging on to me, and that was my first real sight of seeing a little bit of trouble and how police sort of handled it really. But that was football, I suppose, in them days, wasn't it? It was especially when Leeds turned up at the county ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So Swindon Supermarine, I think, were they your first club? Is that when you first got into football? Although I've got a question here from Terry, which says, ask Wayne what his memories are playing for the Deers Leap in the Swindon Sunday League as a 16-year-old. How was that?
They fond memories. I played Sunday football for Deers Leap. We were quite successful. But obviously we was always trying to beat the ground at the time. Obviously, a well-known Swindon Sunday League team, and it was always difficult. But I chose to play with my friends really, and I really enjoyed it. It probably just gave me that grounding that there was the top players playing in the Sunday League then around Swindon, and I was only young. I think I would probably been around about 17, 18. I went into men's football quite young. I started playing men's football at just over 15. And that sort of really gave me the tools to look after myself in a way. It was always tough playing against men when I was so young, but because I didn't go down the pro route, it was a little bit harder for me, So
sure.
I broke my leg at a bad time when it was at School of Excellence then with John Trollope, and I was playing for Wiltshire Schoolboys and I broke my leg. So it put me back. Obviously, I didn't get a pro deal off the back of it. It would have been an apprenticeship, like an apprenticeship then. So I had to do it the hard way, really. And then that's when I went into men's football, really, just as soon as I got back, because obviously I just love playing. So I never give up. I worked harder and harder every year, and it wasn't until really I started going up the leagues that I started to dedicate a lot more to my life about, right, I want to be a pro footballer now. And then that was, lucky enough I got the break, but it was a little bit later in my career, which could have been a lot younger, but just wasn't to be.
Yeah, Forest Green Rovers played a big part, didn't it? And it wasn't the Forest Green Rovers that we know well now, is it? I mean, how was it? No, how was it then?
It was tough. It was a part-time club. I would, I wasn't there long. I literally was there from, I think it was from July until February, and that was it. I was gone. It might even have been earlier than that. Actually, it might have been even November if I can remember rightly. But I wasn't there long because I'd done so well, and then all of a sudden I jumped up a couple of leagues with obviously the team that, should I say it, or am I allowed to say it or not?
Well, I can't.
There's a few stories around that one, so I can delve into it a little bit more. But
I was going to go into it. I was going to mention it to you because, okay, they're a team that play in yellow. They're from the A420. They play at a three-sided stadium. Go.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying the name, so I'm fully aware of what I did and where it went. Yeah, and I was in the thick of it, if I'm honest. Yeah, being a Swindon lad, I was born in Blunsdon, and there was a little bit of an aftermath really when I signed there. The story started. I wasn't even supposed to sign for them. I was on my way to Northampton at the time. I was literally driving down here. It had all been agreed the night before. Chairman had told me, look, this has all been agreed. Wages was agreed. I was off, done, ready to train for him in the morning, just to sign the paperwork. Anyway, so I get a call from the chairman, and he says, look, we've had a higher bid accepted by Oxford. They want you to go into training today. Can you go? Okay. I kind of did and didn't want to, but yeah, I just thought, okay, I'll try, see if I could, I'll say, get a bit more money at one of the two teams. I just didn't know. I didn't really have an agent at that time, so it was something that I was quite naive to. And then, yeah, look, I trained well, signed for Oxford in the end. Possibly the wrong move for me. Not just because I was a Swindon boy, and it was because it was Oxford. Swindon never really wanted me at that time, so I was trying to get a football career going. I felt Oxford United being a far bigger club, I had a better chance of probably going a little bit higher and maybe getting another move. I jumped them leagues so quickly. We got relegated out of League One. Obviously, we played against Swindon. I remember it. Obviously, Steve Milner was in goal, and we still talk about it today. But Swindon won 2-0, and I got absolute dog's abuse from Swindon Town fans. They was obviously at the Manor Ground. It was quite tight behind the goal then. That was the old Manor Ground at Headington. So yeah, that was a tough time really for me. I was stepping up a couple of levels, and then me being a Swindon lad didn't go down very well with the Oxford fans, and it didn't go down very well with the Swindon fans, so I couldn't win. All I tried to do was just try my hardest, and they give me an opportunity, and it, I ended up being there for 3 years, but that was tough times because we got relegated, and then yeah, you just when that happens, there's such a merry-go-round with managers, and it was just one way that I left then. But look, I'm not going to regret it. I do a lot, but I'm not going to fully regret it because I think that it gave me a lot of grounding. I had to stick up for myself a lot more when I was there. But yeah, probably shouldn't have happened. That diversion and that phone call was probably sliding doors moment. Really, something may have happened to me on the way. I don't know, but being back at Swindon now, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think you're forgiven. You're all right. Many of us will remember the Cuckoo Lane end, the walk along that lane from the away end wasn't much fun. Was that the Steve Robinson 2-goal game or not?
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Did Sol Davis score?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I think he scored at the county ground against them, didn't he?
I don't know then. Yeah, you could be right. Yeah, could be right. I was probably marking him.
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, when you do get that move into professional football? And how is that? I mean, you're talking to people all the time now about this, and all of a sudden, Rockin' Robin official. Well, who cares? He was there at that place. He's here now. Let him do it for the town. All forgiven. And what a game that was, which will forever be known as the Steve Robinson days. So
it was him. Yeah.
So there's another thing here. Philip says, interesting fact about Wayne. He's one hell of an artist. Sketched a racehorse for my late dad, and it was outstanding. Top modern lad, and I wish him all the best for the season.
Wow, I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah, I sold it for, I think it was about £40 then, and that was a long time ago. He paid way over the odds for it because I was in love with it, you know, and he prized it off me. But yeah, I remember doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a bit of a soft spot for drawing horses and things like that, and greyhounds as well. Because I used to obviously I was born in Blunsdon, so I lived literally a stone's throw from the dog track. So I was always around there. So I just that was a bit of my passion. But yeah, that's a blast from the past.
Well, there you go. Well, the next time you're on, bring some of them pictures. We can.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, lovely. And as a local guy, says Steve, is it part of Wayne's current job description to teach new recruits how to navigate the magic roundabout?
Just shut your eyes and just drive.
Yeah, just look to the right. Just keep going. Yeah, absolutely. So after that time, then Rushden and Diamonds also played a part in your career, didn't it? Is this when they were in the league?
Yeah, they were in the league. You'll start noticing a trend that most of the clubs I was at, they got relegated. But we should never have got relegated that year at Rushden. I'll never forget it. We were winning one game towards the end. It was against Rochdale, and trying to think the centre forward that scored. He scored 94th minute. We were winning 1-0 and we were gone 5th from bottom, and it was like with 2 games to go, I think it was. And we would have flipped with Rochdale, and he equalised. It was right back, and then a centre back going for the same ball, missed it, and it killed us. But we should never have gone down that year. There was such a great infrastructure there.
Yeah,
but just sadly enough, there wasn't enough investment, which, you know, as you see in today's football, that's what you need. And if you don't get it, it's tough. And if it gets any mismanaged, you know, injuries, bad signings, the club can suffer. And I've seen a couple do that, really. Oxford being a little bit different, because obviously they did bounce back, but they've had some bad times as well.
Yeah, fabulous stadium at Rushden, wasn't it? And those of us who went there as away fans will remember used to get 10% off in the Doc Martin shop, which is next to the stadium.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, see, there's a few of them going around still, isn't there?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely. Gavin says, "Evening, cuz."
Gavin, good to see you, mate.
You're among friends, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah,
as you should be. As you should be.
Should be in Swindon. Yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah,
I don't think my mum would be dialing in though.
Oh, won't she? Now, so Dundalk as well, and as I understand it, you scored a Europa League match, didn't you? You had European experience.
Yeah, I scored a header. It was against a team from Luxembourg at the time. It was a strange one for me. I was doing really well at Cambridge and at Cambridge United, and I've always wanted to be the coaching side of things. You know, I've always wanted that. It's always been my passion, really. From a young age, I got into coaching quite early, and then I got given a player coach role with a friend, and then it was a tough time, if I'm honest. For me, it was going to a different country, just the way they were about, you know, I say this in a nice way about English people being over there, but it was tough. It was a tough grounding for me. I got kind of left on my own as well. The manager just sort of left, and then did come back, but it kind of I was left in a lurch, you know. That was a real tough season for me personally and professionally as well. I was playing and, you know, coaching the team. It was real tough, but we did really well. Got into Europe, and we had the best finish they had for years. So I wouldn't say it wasn't fruitful, but it was a real tough time for me, because obviously I was living away as well. And that was quite tough, but one again where I had to just sort of I had to do things really well, you know, because obviously the pressure was on you. But I loved it, did really well, and that's all you can do, isn't it?
It's interesting.
I come back, and then I went to Newport in the end, which I was glad to get back to England really and just come back home.
Yeah, Newport played a big part in your career, hasn't it? I mean, it seems to me that you've seen the other side of football, if you see what I mean, where we talk about we talk about the glamour, we talk about the multi-million, we talked about Andy Nicholas about this just now at Liverpool. He's involved with their sort of academy, but not directly, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
But there's the multi-million pound side of football, but there's the other side of football, and it seems to me that you've seen a fair bit of that, which
100%
gives you great experience in what you're doing now, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I'm grey. I'm sure I'm lucky I got hair still. Yeah, trust me. I call it the dark side. If we ever speak to the players, or you my partner now probably is seeing it. It's when you're bringing it. I say you bring it home. I've learned not to, but if the pressure's on, you can't sort of hide away from it. I say lucky enough, I've been at clubs where they've only had 4,000 or 5,000 fans there, albeit on different days we've had more. But that's obviously when you're going, wow, you're doing things, you get bigger crowds. But Swindon, you get some big crowds, and they'll let you know. And I know that because obviously I've been there and I've witnessed it. So you flip that, you get them going with you, and they're doing well. Then I've seen that place rocking. So I'm just hoping that, not hoping. I'm quietly confident that we can do really well this year, because I'm that type of person anyway. I don't spout off about anything about how well we're going to do, or because I want to leave that to the players. That's what they're paid to do. I'm paid to be a big part of that, and trust me, it's going to mean a lot to me this year. Because not just because probably the club I'm at, I got a lot of family in Swindon, and I want to do well for them. Let alone that's just an add-on. If anybody that knows me, they know that I want to do well for myself and for my family and for the players, because they're gonna need the kicks at the bum. They're gonna need the pats on the back, and they're gonna need to know that we're in the trenches with them, and that's what League Two is all about. I've been in it too long, so I want them to, especially because we've got a young side. Look outside looking in, we're trying to get that. We're trying to get that experience, that blend. When it gets a little bit, I say it gets a little bit tasty, and players are not getting their way. We got to find a different way of winning, and that's something that we've tried to work on with them throughout pre-season. So yeah, it's that they've had a tough pre-season. We want to hit the ground running.
Well, that ground starts a week on Saturday, isn't it? I know you got Plymouth on Saturday, but the real stuff starts a week on Saturday, which is what pre-season is always geared towards, isn't it? That first kickoff at 3:00 on that Saturday afternoon. This is from Matt. How did your relationship with Michael Flynn begin, and what is it that makes you a good management team? Now, this is Newport, isn't it? You've known him a little while. It continued at Walsall. I mean, what is it with you and Michael Flynn then? How does that all work?
I just can't shake him off. I was his coach. I was first team coach at Newport when he was a player. Obviously, Justin Edinburgh was manager at the time. Real amazing person, top friend of mine. Obviously, so sad what's happened to him.
Sure.
And yeah, obviously Michael was, we always called him Flinny, was a pain in my backside. Let's put it that way. He's a good player, did well, but he's always had that cheeky side. And then I went to Gillingham with Justin. And then we got the sack in January. Was doing quite well, really. And obviously the chairman got rid of us at the time. I think we was just outside the playoffs, felt that wasn't expected. And they moved us on. And come March, Michael then rang me to say, look, I've got the opportunity at Newport. Could you come in as my assistant? stroke first team coach, and then that was obviously the Great Escape year, which we managed to stay up, which was will always stick with me. It was incredible. How we did that. We had 11 wins, and yeah, we stayed up with pretty much the last few kick of the game with Mark O'Brien, and that when you think that your career can go one way or the other. With me, when I was driving to Northampton, it was exactly the same moment. We scored and we were relegated, and then we scored the winner, and I was getting a new deal then, and then I managed to stay up, and we had then Real Cup success. And then it just snowballs, doesn't it? Obviously we stayed together. We tried to improve the team year on, year out, and we did. We got to the playoffs twice. We lost twice in the final. Absolutely robbed both times. Don't sit right with me at the moment still, but we managed to stay at Newport for a while, and we obviously then Michael left, but I stayed on, and then he got the Walsall job, and then that was obviously that was a tough job for us, but I felt we did really well there, and then we sadly slipped away, but we just had too many injuries, and then that was obviously then the rest is history. We obviously got the Swindon Town job, and here we are.
Yeah, which we'll get onto in a minute in terms of the pressure that brings. It seems to me you've enjoyed the moments where you've had success. I mean, the Newport story is an incredible one, really, from where they've come from.
Yeah.
They were an established league team, of course. Then, of course, they were playing at all sorts of grounds all over the shop. Morton and Marsh, I think, at one point, weren't they, in their history, which seems bonkers, but, that's how it was. Justin Edinburgh doing an incredible job, as he did at Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the national attention you got for that cup run. Those, you were really in the national spotlight. How did you all deal with that?
Just I don't know, have you ever been to Newport's games? Or
oh yeah.
It's a raucous place to go to, and I just feel that to play for Newport, to be involved at Newport, you had to have a little bit of a character around about you, and that's probably what we had. We had a lot of characters. We had men that wanted to make things, hostile, wanted to make things difficult for the opposition. We had a pitch at that time that probably helped us do that. Mm-hmm. It did hurt us in the end. It flipped both ways because we evolved as a team and we got better footballing wise, but the pitch never. And then, ironically, when the pitch did come better, obviously we left. But that was, teams just didn't like coming there. I think once they went over that Severn Bridge, they just had a tendency to, I don't know, they just knew that they were in for a tough game, and we didn't disappoint. We played some big teams and away from home as well. The one that sticks in my memory was when we played Middlesbrough away, and then we drew with them away. We scored 94th minute. We were brilliant as well. We gave them hell of a fright. We were 1-0 down, and then we equalised 94th minute. Matty Dolan, a hometown boy, come on and scored, and I think we were celebrating for it felt like about 5 minutes. But that was good times, because then we went on to play Man City after that, because we beat them at home. Tottenham was a big one for us. They were lucky to even draw against us at home. Me for the coaching side of things, it really, really helped me just pit my wits against certain coaches and teams that were better than us, and how we went about it. We scored set plays. We had, even with Man City, I was on my pro license at the time, so I was able to just analyze everything that they did, and it's a big part of it. And we knew that Man City had only conceded 5 corners from the start of the season until we played them. I think it was just the end of January, start of February. So how could I even get that we were going to even get a corner? We wouldn't even. So we had a long throw. So everything I did was just based on the long throw. Every routine that we did, we worked hard on them. When Edison's made an unbelievable save at 0-0 from a long throw that we had. And you never know, if we go 1-0 up, it might have been a bit difficult, but we got back to 2-1 against them, 90th minute, and then he punished us in added on time. But yeah, great to meet some, big names in the game, and when you see some of the players and how they handle it, and I learned a lot from that in a coaching sense and just a visual sense of seeing what's expected at that level as well. We had some real good players then. We had Ben White that went on to, he pretty much marked Harry Kane out of the game, and that was look where he's ended up. So that tells you a lot about some of the players that we had there.
Yeah, he's done okay, I think, hasn't he? I mean, do you think Newport had a bit of an unfair reputation? I think you know what I mean by that, but for being just a direct football team. The pitch, as you mentioned, well, it's a dog's breakfast, let's face it. But, do you think it was an unfair reputation?
Absolutely. But we could play, we could play as well as have that I'll say toughness to us as well. But like I said, we had men, and a lot of them had a mental toughness. If it started to get a little bit, I'll say if things weren't going our way, we didn't give in. We were quite resolute as a group, and that willingness to never give up. And we just did that. We just kept going and going. And I made sure that they were fit. Pre-season was always tough. And like I said, you had to get them characters in that could handle that really. But yeah, we play some really good stuff. We give a couple of teams a few scares, the likes of Newcastle, obviously Leicester we beat, Leeds we beat. We did really well, and I think that gets that gets lost because some of the pitches were still good at that time, and it was just when it started to get towards the rugby side of it around Christmas that it started to go, or just after Christmas really, maybe January. But we evolved as a team because we'd been there so long. We was able to just in the end, you sort of end up cherry picking a couple just to improve in a slight position, and then just keep trying to improve the squad each year, and a little bit more in depth. And then all of a sudden we were a little bit more of a force to be reckoned with. And like I said, it was probably only the pitch really that cost us over the years of getting promoted. I think we would have probably near enough gained automatic promotion, let alone just a playoff slot. I think it was because of the pitch that cost us.
Yeah. Right. There's one or two questions about Swindon, of course. Steve says, what surprised you about Swindon since starting here? And what have you thought of Swindon since you joined? I mean, you know it as a football club, for goodness sake. You know what it is. Yeah. You know the expectation. What surprised you, and what have you thought of Swindon since you've been here?
Probably what surprised me is, I'm not going to say it's harsh to blame previous managers, but there's some real good players here with a lot of talent. And all right, they're all, albeit a little bit young, but when I've now started to coach them, I've just seen that they can handle the ball really well. It's giving them that confidence, giving them a bit more of a guideline of how we're going to play, and being effective when we can. But it's about, I think we need to give them that little bit more of an edge. It's just sometimes I think if there's been a trend that over the last few years that one goal leads to two. So stopping that mentality, a lot of we focused on mentality this pre-season as well, giving a little bit more of a mental toughness. If there's a consequence to everything that we do, that's trying to be installed to the group at the moment. So I'm hoping that will work, because I know what League Two's like. I said it earlier. It's a real tough one, especially this year. It's practically League Two North. So we've got a lot of travelling. But the only thing that surprised me is that probably the players that have been in that building have ended up losing. I think it was it 8 at home, if I remember rightly, and then 6 draws.
Home record's not been great, has it, for a few years? 8
losses and 6 draws out of 14 games where you've only just picked up a point. I think that's something that we've fundamentally got to change. And I don't think that's just because they're a young group. Some things have been fundamentally wrong. I won't go into previous managers and stuff like that, but I've been really surprised about how technical and talented the group is. So we just need to add a few more around it. That's where we're looking. That's what we're looking to do.
We'll get on to what you're hoping to do in a minute, if that's okay. But I noticed on Saturday, certainly Russian Hepburn Murphy.
Yeah,
he's going to be an important part of your team, isn't he?
He's got all the tools that absolutely frightens defenders. He's got an electric pace. We're working on him, just trying to make his timings of his runs better. They're good, but just making sure that you're on side all the time. The timing of him especially when we do switch play and we get our principles across. We've got some talented players that can give him the ball, and that's really what we need to focus on this year is using maybe Charlie as that link up man, and then you've got somebody then with that electric pace that can stretch defenders, and that's his finishing. You glimpsed at it a little bit over the course of his season, but probably not enough because he had injuries. He hit the crossbar on Saturday with a great strike. So he's gaining in confidence, which is good. He's feeling fitter. Same with the whole group, really. They've had a tough pre-season, and we've got probably about another 3 days of running with them, and they've got we just want to get that last bit into them before the campaign starts.
Yeah, obviously you've picked up 1 or 2 injuries, and we, you feel for somebody like Reece Devine, don't you? Who, boy, talk about bad luck. I mean, you feel for him, don't you? Because here's a player who's obviously got ability, and yet missed the whole of last season pretty much, apart from 50 minutes at Leyton Orient, and then it happens again.
Yeah, and he worked so hard to come back as well, and it's a real shame. But it's just not meant to be for Reece at the moment. But that don't mean that he's got to go into the depths of like mentally trying to get himself back, which people sort of don't really see. It's a long road, especially if you're you're in the recovery room and you're in the gym and things like that, away from the group. It's not always nice, but he's a great lad. I'm sure he's going to try his utmost to come back. And I think he's ops tomorrow, or he's going for a consultation before his operation tomorrow. I can't remember. I think Tom Clayton's is tomorrow, perhaps. So we've missed. We're going to miss them too. Sometimes that left-sided centre back as well, and they're not. Then there's not many of them.
Well, I was going to say left-footed players. They don't grow on trees, do they? Quite literally, don't grow on trees, obviously. But so you mentioned Tom Clayton there, and I've seen. Was it 4 or 5 weeks? Is it, or is it sooner than that?
That's about right. We've not really put a target on them just yet. It could because obviously if they're having operations, you just don't know how they go, and we just want them to heal quickly, I suppose, and then try and come back as quick as they can. But we just don't want them to rush it. That's the fine balance, I suppose.
Sure, and I guess you mentioned the young players, and a lot of them last season was like their first season in professional football. And I guess they would have learned a lot about it. And will that be a big benefit to them this season?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got that. They've got that little bit of experience now. So when you're saying stuff to them that, we're going to Accrington, or we're going to go away to Morecambe, and it's going to be possibly direct, they know that now. They know that they've gone to certain places in the league, the Suttons, that will make things really difficult for you in that department. So we know that the players know now what's expected. So they go there with a little bit more experience. They go there with a bit more belief that we can obviously beat them, and that's like I said, we got some real tough games away from home. We got 5 out of 7 away from home in the first 6 weeks. So the fixture list hasn't been kind, but mentally for us, it'd be good because we know what we're expecting. We know what we're going into. We got a long time to prep for Colchester, which is what we're doing. We've got a long time to prep for Peterborough. After that, it becomes a bit more, the gap comes a lot more tighter. But, you get, it's the first time really that you get pretty much 6 weeks to prepare for one game, or pretty much 4 or 5 weeks to prepare for one game. So that's what we're looking to do, and then make sure we get the squad right, make sure we get how we play right, and then we can give them that mentality as well, that toughness, that when we are going to be away from home, we go there in full confidence, and that's what we're looking to do. And we want to go there and we're going to look to try and win every game. I think this league's like that. You can do that in this league. If you go a little bit higher, you wouldn't be able to do it. You know, you'd have to go away from home with a completely different setup, and you know, maybe hit teams on a counter attack, but not in this league. I think, you know, defenders make mistakes, and that's why we'll always go to win every game, and that's something that, you know, we're trying to give to the group.
What about cup ties? Because you'll be aware that Swindon's recent record in cup ties has been shocking. Good. I mean, last season we played the minimum amount of games that we could play in an entire season, which is pretty bad. How important cup ties are to you this season?
Well, it's a fine balance, if I'm honest. That if you have cup success, it always normally leads to league failure, and the reasons being that you haven't got the biggest squads. You pick up injuries. You're obviously getting games cancelled, rearranged for later on in the season. Then, you know, you need a bigger squad to cope with that. Sometimes money, comes through the door, but may not filter down quickly enough. So it's a real one where you want to find balance. I probably want to get to the second round, have a real money spinner for the club, and then get out. I know that don't really sound right for you, but you know, because we want league success as well. But that don't mean that you can't do both. You know, teams have done that before, but it becomes a lot more difficult. And that's something that, you know, look, we're going to every game trying to win. It don't matter who we play in the first round of the FA Cup. We want to win. But when you look back on it over experience, it's cost us in the league, albeit, you know, we've had to go through the hard way. But like I say, you know, we should have probably finished a lot higher, but it was the cup campaigns that probably cost us in the end.
Well, that's a very interesting answer. You might be aware there's a running joke amongst Town fans that the second round FA Cup day is Christmas shopping day because we're never in it.
Never in it. You have a day off.
Yeah, get a day off. So
don't say that. Don't say that this year, because I don't want to go Christmas shopping that way.
I mean, I know. Just a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. But what do you see your relationship with Mike Flynn as? Are you there as a confidant? Are you there as a support? Are you a partnership? How does it work?
Everything, all that. We obviously we drive in together every day. I'll do all the grass stuff. I'm his confidant. He wants to speak to me about anything we do. We pretty much know everything about each other. He knows what gets on my nerves. He knows when I'm in a mood in the mornings and I need to be left alone. I know when he is as well. We probably sometimes fight like cat and dog, but that's healthy. It's always done in a respectful way. We both got our opinions, but we can bounce off each other as well. And when the chips are down, you know, when he might need me and then I might need him when I'm down, you know, and that's something that we've mastered that probably over the last few years, especially with some of the, you know, not so much success we've had, or, you know, we've had some difficult times, but we've always never allowed each other to sort of get too down, you know, and we want to bounce back. And, you know, when our characters are probably like that, we'll always fight to the end, you know, and that's the way we both are. As in, I do a lot on the grass. I want to coach the team as best as I can. He does all the stuff that I don't really want to do, and he deals with the players and the people above. This side, the fans bit, the journalist bit, that sometimes I'm not too willing to do. It doesn't say that I don't want to do it, but because I do enjoy it, but I just, you know, I'm one of them that I don't really want all the, you know, any limelight. I kind of sit behind the scenes a little bit better, and that sort of suits me. But yeah, he's the one that, you know, he wants to go and see Pep and, you know, and Klopp and things like that. That's what he does.
Brilliant. And just finally, without going into specifics, are we expecting moves or not this week?
yes, I would. Yeah. What day are we? Monday.
On Monday, I think. Yes.
Yeah, we're close.
Okay.
It's been. I will say it's been difficult this window.
Sure.
Probably the amount of money it's just getting branded around is astronomical. Players' expectations are a lot higher this time around. They're in a cost of living crisis in football, and then we've lost out on a couple that I didn't think we would. In losing to certain teams that I don't believe are no good. No, I'm saying won't be near us. That's not what I'm saying. But Swindon's a big club, and I felt that players are sometimes not really doing that anymore, and it sometimes just comes down to money. We're close with a few. That's all I'll say. But the gaffer's that's one thing he does really well. He's constantly on the phone to everybody, and every man and his dog, and that's if not for the want to try, and trust me, he's travelled around the country to try and get people in. We've been let down at the last minute by certain ones, but I always think that's meant to be. If they're not meant to come here, then they're not meant to be. So, we're close to a couple which hopefully will benefit the club, and I'm sure they will.
Brilliant. Well, that's answered that question. Thank you very much, Steve, because obviously people are asking. You'll be aware of that. But it's been great to have you on. Thank you ever so much. And you'll be at the Fans Forum, I think, on the 16th of August as well. So looking forward to seeing you there. And it's great to get to know you a little bit more, and particularly about your acrylics. I'm looking forward to seeing some of them too.
There's a lot you don't know about me yet.
It'd be great to get to know you. So fabulous. Thank you ever so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me. Bye. Take care.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wayne. That's been great. Thank you. Please don't go anywhere at the minute. Don't go anywhere at the moment, and we'll just go off live. But thank you very much. And we'll have to have an art gallery or something in the Legends Lounge.
See if I can sell them. Or something. I'm going to charge more than 40 quid this time.
How are you? I was thinking of maybe you'd like to donate. You'd like to donate one or two to the Derby Rimmer Foundation.
I see what I can do.
Yeah, brilliant.
Exactly. Brilliant. Thanks very much. And it's been great to get to know you. That's the whole idea of tonight, was just to sort of get to know you and everything. So brilliant. Right. So thank you very much.
I do smile. Everybody. I know it don't look very often. I don't, but I do smile.
But you do.
The people that know me. No, I don't. You're more than welcome.
Well, we've made you smile, so that's good.
Yeah, you have,
Okay, that's all for this evening. We will see you next week. We have got Colin Gordon on next week, which will be good. Take a bit of a blast from the past and to do that. So we will see you then, and have a good week, and enjoy Falls Rush in about 10 minutes time. So thanks so much, everybody. See you soon.